So I'm going to begin tonight by playing a piece that I dedicate to my father. And it's actually on Sky Dancer, a CD that's in Japan. In fact, he always claimed that this was his favorite piece I ever wrote. It was probably, I think, the only piece that he really liked. So I'd like to start with this piece. It's quite a romantic piece, and it's entitled Beyond Passion. we're going to do an ensemble piece, and then we're going to take a break and we're going to show a short film, and then I'm going to come back and play some more solo piano pieces. And while they're getting all set, I just want to tell you a little story about my father to show you my connection with him, maybe compared to how everyone else perceives it. It's a short little story. It reminds me of when he was retired, which was 5 years ago, and he moved down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. We decided to take the trip together. I had a relationship with my father that was not, say, a typical father-son. It was more like a buddy-buddy cop film. That kind of deal. We were very good friends. And we're in the same car, driving all night from New Jersey to South Carolina, and we're driving to North Carolina. I'm driving, and he's in the passenger seat. So in the car I sit in, and we're going about 85, 90, I guess. And I said, Dad, if I get a ticket, we're going to have to pull a switch because, they see a young kid driving down here in the South. If we get in big trouble, we might get, thrown in jail. He goes, no problem. We'll just switch seats. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, sirens are going. North Carolina police pull us over on the highway. And here I am, and I'm in the driver's seat, and I'm like going under him, and he's going over me. And now I'm pulled to the side of the road. And now he's in the driver's seat, and I'm in the passenger seat. And I don't know how the cop didn't see this happen. So now he's driving, technically. Officer comes out and says, okay, sir, let me see your driver's license, registration, and insurance. My father starts in with one of his great routines. Officer, we're lost, and I'm moving from the north, living in the south for good. And I'm silent. And he's like, sir, just please get out of the car and let me check you. He takes my father in the police car. 10 minutes go by, and I'm sitting there wondering, what are they doing with him? Another cop comes over to my car and says, your father do any drugs? Has he been drinking tonight? I said, no, he's just left us. My father, nice guy. He goes back to the police car, comes back with my dad, and we're sitting there, and he goes, okay, I'm not going to give you a ticket under one condition. You know what that was? That the sun drives the rest of the way. And there's a lot more to that story, but we'll end it there and play some. Anyway, this is a piece. It's not a piece that's recorded, even though there are themes from it that are recorded also on Sky Dancer. And Rob and Mike and a dear friend of mine, Jeff Seitz, who actually played drums on the recording, offered his services about 5 minutes ago to help out. Of course. So this would be great. So this is actually all called Variations on Awakening. That's it. I'm going to play a few solo piano pieces, and then I'm going to have the group come up and we're going to do one more improvisation. So, I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, but I'll think about it while I'm playing these other pieces. I'd like to start with a quiet piece. I've never played this actually in public except for in Myrtle Beach at the Baba Center down there. It's a very special piece to me. It's a dear favorite. It's entitled By Candlelight, and it was written and dedicated to a dear friend of mine who's a Baba person. Her name is Alexandra Marks. And I don't know if any of you know, but her parents, I find her story very interesting because her parents, or her mother rather, I should say, followed MeherBaba since 1948. Her mother was a dancer in Margaret Craft's original company in New York. And her mother met Baba in 52 in New York. And Alex, who was one of the 4 children of this family, didn't come to Baba until 3 years ago, even though she knew about Baba her whole life. It's a very interesting story. And she got zapped when she went to India. That's how she puts it to me. So I was touched by her story, and I wrote this piece when I thought about that. And again, it's entitled By Candlelight. like to play another piece with another dedication to a person that's helped me tremendously, both personally and professionally, over the last 6 to 8 months. And I feel this is a piece that if there's ever Out of Africa 2 made or something like that, this is the kind of music that fits that. I happen to love the person that wrote that. His name is John Barry. He's a very famous film score composer. And he's influencing my music. And the name of this piece is the title of the person it's dedicated to, and that is Patrice. working on this piece? Should we have the group?
20 more minutes. 20 more minutes.
20 more minutes?
Oh! Are you feeling up to it?
Okay.
Want some water?
Yeah.
Water boy.
That's what I'm just gonna play, actually.
Water!
I was going to play a piece that is one of my favorites, and obviously something has to do with that is MeherBaba wrote this piece, and I feel honored that I could adapt it in what I'll call the fantasy variations of Gujarati art. I think we should just have a moment of silence. Avatar MeherBabaLibrary ki jai.
Avatar MeherBabaLibrary ki jai. Avatar MeherBabaLibrary ki jai.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
It's really great to be on the West Coast. I've been here a couple of years. It's just great to play for everyone. Thank you very much for allowing me to share this experience. And someone asked if I would tell one story about my father, or say something about him. I said one. I mean, I have 101. And depends on what the rating system is. This is going to videotape. Well, maybe you could help me. Could you ask a question? I could maybe...
Tell how awful Harold was.
How about a censored story?
Well, there's a lot of censored stories.
Okay, one
But-
one.
Now the meeting's officially over, so we can like sit down. My dad was great, and I mean, like I said, he was a real buddy. I remember there's so many stories. I really don't know where to begin or where to end. But he was very close to me as a friend, and all my friends, for example, knew him as their friend, not just like, oh, this is your friend's dad. It's like, it was their friend, Greg, who's here tonight from New York, and John Pizzuro. I remember John Pizzuro said the first time he walked into our house when I knew him from high school, he said he walked in, he sees my father doing an imitation of Joe Cocker, and he says, well, this guy's already. That was his introduction. He used to do great imitations for all of us, and I remember when we were little kids down the shore, he was always what I would call like a spiritual panhandler, as a term. And one great thing, but he was very sincere in what he was doing. I remember he had Greg and myself as little kids standing out in the middle of the bay, screaming at the top of our lungs, one on each side of him, "We must stop the war in Vietnam! We must stop the war in Vietnam!" Which was, and everyone else was like looking at us like, God knows. We didn't know what we were doing either. There's so many, he was truly a friend. I mean, we could talk about anything, which I really have to say was a great experience. I mean, anything relating to spirituality, sexuality, any kind of emotional questions, that usually things that you wouldn't approach with your parents, he was more than happy to discuss and answer. In many ways. So, I don't know how much I should say. Oh my God. Yeah, he sang a lot of songs. He wrote a lot of songs. One of my favorite songs that he wrote was, probably not on that tape, it's called I Like My Women Big and Round. And I'll never forget that he used to play that on the piano, and he used to bring down the house. In fact, that one time, I can tell this story because it relates to this whole California group. I remember, it was when my mom was out in California visiting Phyllis Frederick before she passed away. And my father and myself were staying in the house in New Jersey at that time. And so I decided to throw a little party, like about 100 people. And I told my father, "Listen, Dad, we're going to have a party. You don't mind?" He goes, "No, no problem." So I paid him to keep quiet and not tell my mom that we're having a party. And of course, at the end of the night at 4 a.m., he's playing I Like My Women Big and Round for 100 people dancing around the piano that no one could have topped it as a start. And I mean, I remember all of these. They were great because it was all in such good fun. But he truly loved Mayor Baba, so it was Phyllis Frederick actually coined the phrase that he was Baba's only Western must. Which I found to be really, he was kind of must-like in certain ways. But he hit the nail right on the head with certain things. He could see through situations, and he would call a spade, and in certain terms that other people would weigh things out and think them out. He would just say, "No, it's like this," and boom. Sure enough, it was. And we got into some jams over that, actually. But I'm actually being kind of vague because I'm afraid to. But I loved him dearly, and I'm really sorry that he passed away this year. He passed away on January 8th, and he had been sick since September previously. In fact, he got sick on September 24th, which was my birthday. It would be last year. Yeah, this coming Thursday, it would be 1 year, and then he slowly deteriorated, and then he did pass away from a heart attack in a hospital in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. But I want to say one more thing about my dad is, he wanted to be an actor, and he was Gabriel Pascal's right-hand man for many years, who also, I don't know if you know, or some of them I'm sure you know, followed Mayor Baba. And they had a lot in common. They were both really kind of crazy Jewish characters. Pascal was a Hungarian, and my father was a Russian, and they really hit it off. I mean, they just palled around together, and he picked up a lot of his personality with Pascal, and Pascal was someone that encouraged him. I don't know if you know Pascal's background, but I know you know he took a lot of George Bernard Shaw's plays and adapted them into films. In fact, he was the only one, Gabriel Pascal, who could actually convince George Bernard Shaw to turn his plays into films. It was a big thing. Major Barbara, Pygmalion, Antony and Cleopatra, all were productions of Gabriel Pascal back in the 50s. And my father really learned a lot. I think that was something that was probably one of the biggest effects on my father's life. I'd like to talk more a little bit about how he came to Baba, because I think that was also interesting, because it was connected to this whole world of film, which, you know, living in LA, we know something about at least. Is that my father was very attracted to trying to get in that world of being an actor, because he was a natural actor. And he went to a meeting, which was right around the corner from where they were living, or just very close by in New York City, to Little Carnegie Hall, Carnegie Recital Hall, to hear Princess Narina Machiavelli speak. I remember he tells the story so well. He signs up, Princess Narina Machiavelli will speak on Sri Meher Baba's visit to the West. So this was in 1951. And my father looked up and he says, okay, another master. Well, maybe I'll check this one out too. So he went, and he sees all these people in the little Carnegie Hall, and they're passing out, and they're fainting, and they're making all the fools and stuff. He goes, what the hell's going on here? So he comes back home and he tells my mom. My mom has no interest in anything like this. She was born Irish Catholic. She left that world, and Keats, Blake, and Emerson were her way of life. So my father was interested in a lot of different masters. He wasn't just interested in one. And that's what became so interesting to me, is that he actually stayed with this one particular master for 30 some odd years after fooling around with, say, 30 in 1 year. So what happened is he says he came home and he was thinking about seeing Machiavelli in Carnegie Recital Hall. And he says, I sat down, he says, I'm going to write that Machiavelli dame a letter. So he writes her this letter, pouring out his heart and soul and his guts about what do you think spirituality is all about. And, of course, the next day when she gets the letter, it's not home, and she gets on the phone, my mom picks it up, and she's like, I want to speak to Harold Rudd immediately, he's on the path. And of course, my mother is like, oh boy, no one of these nuts. So, as the story goes, my father comes home, and my mother says, so I hear you're going out with princesses now. And my father said, well, I just met someone. She goes, well, she wants you to call her. So my father makes an arrangement, and they go over and meet her at the Barbizon Plaza. And one very distinctive point he makes is that he walks into a beautiful penthouse suite where she was staying, on top floor, I believe. And she had her curtains shut. And my father was questioning that. And Machiavelli turns to him, and she picked up that he was questioning this, why it was enclosed. And my father was, interested in this, and she turns and she says, there's nothing out there. It's all within. Which I thought was very interesting. I thought it was very interesting, symbolically speaking. And she had a long talk where she convinced him somehow not to travel around the corner from where he lived, but to drive 700 miles to meet this Meher Baba, who was coming in several months. Now, my father was the kind of guy that would not really get up and go, far away. And he would go around the corner to the Carnegie Deli, maybe, but I don't think that he would go 700 miles to see someone when there were so many others that he could pick right out of a hat in about 4 or 5 blocks away. Anyway, then she introduced them both to Margaret Crass, and my mom got a little more interested, but she wasn't interested, really. But they decided to go. I don't know how much I should tell this, or how much I should go on.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Okay. But then, the time comes, and they drive down to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, 1952, and they get there, and everyone gets 5 minutes with Meher Baba. Alone. Well, who throws a fit? Harold Rudd. 5 minutes, I've driven 700 miles, I need all day with it. So my mom's trying to calm him down, because she had no interest. I mean, she was really devoted. John Pizarro and Greg, I think they'll vouch for that, and Adele, who knows my mom well. She said, you give my husband my 5 minutes, I don't have to go in. She says this to, I think it was Margaret Crass. Was it Margaret, or? I don't know.
Phil's not there after they saw it.
Oh, okay. It was, but who was in charge? I'm not sure.
No, I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it was Margaret Crass.
She was there.
If it wasn't Margaret, it might have been, it wasn't Kitty, it might have been Margaret or Anita. One of the two. But then I believe it was Margaret because her answer was nothing doing. If Baba says that he needs more than 5 minutes, he'll get it. You get your own time. So everything was settled.
That's Margaret. Yeah.
So, of course, my father. Oh, this is a very interesting point. I want to backtrack. Is my father asked Machiavelli, well, I'd like to bring Baba a present, and also to Margaret Kraft. I'd like to bring him something. What does he like? So she says, well, Baba likes asparagus. So my father says, great, I'll bring him some asparagus. So he stuffs these 2 big jugs filled to the top with asparagus to bring down to meet this perfect master. And he's online waiting to go in. He gets up to the door, and he's determined to find out. He says, I'll find out if this guy is who he says he is or not. And he says he opens the door, the screen door, to the barn, which is where they met in 52. And he says that there he sees on one side Baba with the Indian mandali. And he says he starts to walk very, very slowly towards him. In this very staunch, kind of step-like manner, holding these 2 jugs of asparagus. And he's going right towards him, and as he approaches and comes right up to MeherBaba, Baba jumps up, grabs him, throws his arms around him, and my father still holds this strong, determined pose not to give in. He says, I'm going to look him right in the eye. So he looks him right in the eye, and they embrace, and he starts to let down. And all of a sudden he feels all of this love and these feelings that he never experienced. And then Baba says, sit down. And an interesting thing he says, then he said he sat with Baba and their feet were touching each other. Baba was in his bare feet, he made Harold's shoes were off, and their feet were touching each other. And he says he was so happy. And he says, the interesting point that was made is Baba spelled out, I don't know if he spelled on the alphabet board or if he was doing it through an interpreter in 52. Which was it? The interpreter, was it Adi or?
In 52?
52?
Yeah, Adi.
It was Adi. Yes, it was Adi actually, you're right. And Baba asked my father, he says, tell Harold that Harold loves MeherBaba very much. And Adi interprets that to me. My father says he was very pleased with that. And then he says, but also tell Harold that Baba loves him very much. And it really affected him. I mean, it's not something you can intellectually really in any way analyze or comprehend, but it was the experience, the awakening experience, which is what the experience is. Not that you can really learn or be taught. And then my father went out, and then my mom went in. I don't know if I should go on because that's separate, but I'll just say that my mother went in, not expecting or not really interested in anything, and all she remembers is opening the screen door to the barn and getting zapped with this huge light. She never said she never saw him in 1952. She never actually saw the body. There's no experience of seeing the physical body at all. It was all just another plane of consciousness where she just went. And she was taken over apparently by John Bast and introduced. But she doesn't remember anything. And then she was, for several months after, very spaced out. And, I mean, she still loves Blake, Emerson, and Keith, but she has another one that's a little bit above them all. So that's really how they came in 52. And that was the beginning of a very long saga.
She was just as close to his Harold when I was there. And I was asked to help them with it and wandering off into the woods.
Right, that's right. My mother she said that she got lost in the woods. You must know that story where she got lost because she was so spaced out from that experience. But anyway, that was the beginning time.
How long did Harold get? Yeah.
Good question. He probably got much more than 5 minutes. He probably didn't need it.
That's about it.
Yes. I think he did leave them. Well, thank you very much. And